The Dark Cosmos presents The Cosmic Anomaly That No One Returns From. Written by Tiana Petkovska.
Hey Creepypasta fans, it's Kira Rhodes, and I'll be your narrator for tonight. Enjoy tonight's sci-fi horror story. Also, if you want to connect and support us, make sure to check out our Discord and Patreon links in the description. And remember, stay cosmic.
There is a strange and inexplicable area of our galaxy where in 300 years of human spacefaring, no one had ever returned from. The ones that have said to reach it and come back to tell the tale were later revealed as frauds, and their claims were disproven by the Earth's Cosmological Committee, a scientific institution in charge of overseeing all matters regarding space exploration and travel. Some called this part of the galaxy a portal. Others thought of it as a wormhole, but no one really seemed to understand the discrete aspect of its nature, since the tools available for researching it were not developed with its essence in mind. Whatever that place was, and probably still is, whether an anomaly, a mysterious or magical portal, or simply a rare occurrence in the cosmos, and reality itself, the only way to find out for certain was to go over the claims of the supposed returnees and piece together a story. The most recent report from an international interplanetary vessel, the Byzantium, traveling in the vicinity of the cosmic anomaly, showed a clear indication and almost definite proof of its existence. However, this vessel had not yet returned to the Earth hub. In fact, its penultimate message to the hub was their report on the strange sighting, with the captain alluding to the idea that he might take a detour on their trip back home to make additional scans and investigate the phenomenon. He wasn't very generous with any additional information on what they had discovered up there until that point. And that left the committee stuck, awaiting their newest message to arrive since it had been scheduled for the upcoming few days. In the meantime, their main objective was sorting through endless boring documents and recordings that either revealed nothing or how little any vessel on a non-scientific mission thought of them. Namely, the best documented sightings of, and even visits to, the phenomenon came mostly from pirates, which were known to toy with Earth Hub's institutions so that the mapping of the galaxy would remain incomplete. Their reports would often make outrageous claims, supported by incredulous and ludicrous stories that couldn't be backed up in fact, or the laws of physics for that matter. However, the interplanetary pirates were sometimes much more daring to venture into unknown territories of the Milky Way that Earth Hub vessels couldn't get clearance to even approach. They were also more motivated to seek out which was peculiar and anomalous, since they knew that there was a scientific community willing to pay handsomely for information that they could not attain in any other way. When accepting or rejecting any of the pirates' claims, the committee would always be walking a tight line between truth and fiction. One such example were the statements of pirate returnees, where the one phrase could be ever present when describing or referring to the cosmic phenomenon of interest: "There be dragons." Makievka, a professor emeritus at the Central University of Earth Hub, would scoff at their nonsense and often wonder why the committee would be tasked to even take into consideration such appalling shows of disrespect towards them. However, his superior, the chairman of the committee, was a man with an open mind and an infantile disposition. No clue what was to be deemed worthless unless they could prove otherwise. Chairman Osmanli had every other member in his group angry, tired, and full of resentment, for most of them agreed with Makievka, save for one. Unfortunately for them, he wasn't a scientist, but a philosopher. Even more unfortunate for Chairman Osmanli, because the philosopher found nothing infantile in the claims of the pirates, but a dire warning about the nature of reality and the principal ways in which we humans regard it through the cosmos. Whether the pirates were joking or not, the phenomenon itself was a serious matter. Stefanovsky, the philosopher, would often comment. As it would soon be illuminated for his fellow academics, nothing in the cosmos is as simple as the difference between a joke and a warning when you know of nothing else to compare the statements to. Interestingly though, two interpretational tendencies were forming amongst the members of the committee regarding what the anomaly or phenomenon was. Makievka was spearheading one, and Osmanli the other. To an outsider, it might have sounded like two camps were arguing semantics, but between them, the fervor in defining the phenomenon as a portal or a wormhole was of utmost importance, and to someone getting close to the phenomenon, it would mean no damn thing. Concurrently, as the academics were presenting their ideas to one another in the comfort of a conference room, Captain Maximovich, from the Byzantion, was discovering the dreadful consequences of venturing into unknown areas of an inherently uncaring universe. When his last message to Earth's Cosmological Committee finally arrived, it was a series of inarticulate screams, with each set simultaneously uttered by what they presumed was his entire crew of 157. Later, within the historical archives of the Cosmological Library, the recording would be deemed the Hymn of Despair. To state the obvious, neither Captain Maximovich, or his ship, or his crew were ever to be seen again in the known cosmos. Though Makievka had suspected that whatever would pass through the portal once would have to return to our universe once again. To this day, no one can say for certain if his argument was valid or not. The hymn was, by all means, the fuel to Stefanovsky's fire. Since he had strayed from his contemporaries regarding the acceptance of the occult teachings of old, Stefanovsky had now found himself in the middle of an opportunity to both present and prove his ideas. Where pirates had sought rare elements to plunder from unsuspecting mining colonies and ships, he had discovered precious gems that opened the spirit to other realms. Where pirates would see profit, he would see the attainment of the highest levels of consciousness. So, it would be prudent to state that he was no foe of the pirates that issued such controversial statements as the one about the cosmic anomaly. In truth, he had even commissioned a pirate ship to fetch him that which he most desired: proof for his own fringe theory about the phenomenon. This vessel was only a few light years away from the Byzantion, and on its way to the phenomenon as well. Stefanovsky was expecting news and reports to arrive from them just days after they had received Maximovich's message. The aftermath of receiving the recording from the Byzantion was devastating for the members of the committee. While some, like Professor Makievka, kept their cool and continued hypothesizing, others were greatly haunted by it. Chairman Osmanli, particularly so, because his son was the lead scientist on that mission, and he had thought that he could almost discern his voice among the many screaming in the hymn of despair. There were no words to describe the horror of hearing your one and only child vanishing from the cosmos in one unintelligible moment, during a mission that you had helped him join. Where previously Osmanli had hope in his heart that his son would be a returnee, a hero, bringing valid news on the phenomenon, now there was sadness and grief, even despair. The chairman stepped down from his position at the Earth's Cosmological Committee and handed control over to Makievka. He wasn't as open-minded, nor as understanding as his predecessor. To the fact, Stefanovsky's ideas were all but expelled from their investigation almost immediately. Until a few days later, when the committee finally received a new message about the anomaly, sent back from the second ship that was approaching it. The tension among the scientists and academics was almost palpable. Chairman Makievka was debating if they should even accept a recording from space pirates at this stage in their investigation, considering how the stakes were raised by the Byzantion. Without Osmanli to oppose him, and with Stefanovsky having little to no power over the committee, the pirate message was deemed invalid and archived in the Cosmological Library of Earth Hub. This split the committee, sending them on an academic path that would end up changing how science and investigation were to be done at all in many institutions of the Earth Hub. Stefanovsky had lost his position on the committee. Nay, he was driven out of it because of his growing obsession with the occult, the cosmic phenomenon, and that damn pirate message that no one would let him listen to. It was said that only one person had ever heard it, the archivist, that was meant to place it in the annals of the library. After a few short days upon hearing the recording, the archivist had dismissed himself from the living and barricaded himself in his home, never to work again, nor participate in the social life of Earth Hub in any other way whatsoever. Years, even decades, had passed after the event that had brought the committee some of its worst and most unapologetically restrictive regulations, instigated by Chairman Makievka. Academics of similar standing to Stefanovsky were not even allowed access to the many documents of the Cosmological library, so they would be able to continue their research. This, naturally, made Stefanovsky seek out alternative ways in which he could learn of the newest messages surrounding the cosmic anomaly, called at that point simply as Sunt Dracones from the Latin, which Makievka preferred to the ancient Greek. Stefanovsky was completely consumed by the idea of the cosmic anomaly, and had even tried reaching it himself. Regardless, he had no luck in finding an interplanetary vessel, pirate or otherwise, that would be willing to take him there. Since the Byzantion event, rumors had spread about the phenomenon amongst the different space-surfing institutions of Earth Hub, and a warning was issued not to approach that part of the galaxy in any circumstance. Being inherently superstitious creatures, the space pirates operating parallel to Earth Hub's galactic programs stayed away from it, as if from hell itself. Moreover, something so awful had been relayed amongst the pirate ships via channels unbeknownst to the committee or Earth Hub, that even speaking of the anomaly had been forbidden amongst their ranks. It seemed that the pirate vessel, commissioned by Stefanovsky, had sent out another message, apart from the one received by the committee. Whether it was true or not, it had sent the ship that had attained it into complete ruin and devastation. The pirate crew on board was said to have resorted to cannibalism and ritual maiming, succumbing to an ancient belief in matters that far surpassed the limits of human understanding. Taking the situation of their fellows as a lesson, the remaining pirates even stopped sending fictitious messages on the various regions of the galaxy that they would frequent, and began diligently sharing information for the purposes of mapping out the Milky Way. Many more years since then, Stefanovsky, just at the tail end of his lifetime, managed to find out where the archivist had lived and spent his days as a recluse. To his utter surprise, the man was still alive, if what he had been doing can even be called living. Desperate for answers before his own demise into the sweet embrace of the great beyond, Stefanovsky had arrived at the doorstep of the person that remained his only hope to finally attain them. The house was barricaded from the inside. No light had seen the interior of the archivist's home for decades, nor had another human being stepped through its entrance, and no word had come out of it either. Stefanovsky was pleasantly surprised when he saw the door crack open a little when he knocked. What he saw, peering at him from inside, hardly looked human anymore. Pale, decrepit, and weakly, the archivist could barely walk as he showed the philosopher inside of his foul-smelling home. He didn't speak, but simply pointed in the various directions in which Stefanovsky should move around the house. When they finally arrived at his study, the archivist sat the aging philosopher on a leather chair and pulled out a sound archiving device from his cabinets. He turned around before he would hand it over to Stefanovsky and took a long look at him from under his sunken eyes. It cannot be transcribed into words what the two men shared in that moment. One, feverishly expecting the realization of a lifelong obsession, and the other, in his final moments, the thought that another living soul would know the burden that he had been living with. The archivist placed the device on the table in front of Stefanovsky, and signaled for him to wait to play the recording until he was out of the room. Left alone in almost complete darkness, Stefanovsky reached out and played the recording. After a small lag in the beginning, the gruff voice of the pirate captain filled the study completely.
Shadows and dismay. It is not one, but it is many. Not a cosmic phenomenon. Not a portal, or even a planet or star, but things of origin unknown, possessing realms unfathomable. Our cosmos hides their secret being in layers upon layers of matter. But what it is, what is it? I shudder to think. The ship is almost consumed. Bit by bit, the shadows came at it from all directions. I am in my quarters, and they are near. My crew is dead? I do not know of them anymore. I'm also dead? Am I dead? I do not know of myself anymore. Let it be known from this day onward, and heed the given warning. There be dragons of shadow and dismay, and no man should reach the threshold of their realm.
The voice had stopped, and in a few seconds, terrible screams were heard screeching from the past into the future. Where the philosopher sat on a leather chair in a stranger's home, he was unmoving and silent. Those were not the screams of the pirate crew coming from the device. Stefanovsky never left the archivist's house, and was never heard from again in all of Earth Hub, the Milky Way galaxy, or the vast reaches of the known cosmos. Chairman Makievka did not mourn his absence, and the new members of Earth's Cosmological Committee that had succeeded both of them never heard his name mentioned or knew that the moniker of the cosmic anomaly was devised from a warning. Hic sunt dracones,